Hey, well, happy Saturday, SMITE fans, and welcome in to Week 7 of the SPL, a week where already yesterday we saw some fireworks and aggro what could be the closest knit iteration of the SMITE Pro League yet.
It has to be. There's no way that any other league has been this close, because now for a while it was 7 teams that could all take a game off one another with Obey lagging behind. Now It's 8 teams that can all win or lose on any given day. And the games aren't bad, Dave. That's the thing, too. It's not like every team – it's close because every team is executing at a very low level. They aren't understanding their game plans, yada, yada. It's close because every team has really, really improved, and all these players have improved. It's been a blast to watch, man. I've loved it.
And 6 out of 6 possible games yesterday would certainly be a testament to that. Standings as well, quite close. 2 teams starting off today, eUnited Renegades down in that 6-7 spot, but literally 1 win separating eUnited from tied for third place instead of down at 6. Renegades looking to keep pace with the top of the pack as well. Really, for the first time, we've seen kind of this one standout team, and that's Rival, up in first place. But the 2 teams I mentioned we have going head-to-head in our first matchup today, eUnited versus the Renegades. Now, fan vote-wise, this is a 30-70 split in favor of the Renegades. But, Aggro, it feels like this is an eUnited team that I can't quite put my finger on. We see some massive performances. They win 2-0 over Radiance, and then they lose 2-1 to Rival before that. It seems like this is a team that can compete week in and week out if they can clean up some of that consistency.
Yeah, that's the problem with this team and has been since the start. But I think that going 2-1 against Rival, the team that's starting to separate themselves, as you mentioned, the very top of the standings, and then 2-0ing Radiance is certainly a step in the right direction for this squad. Now, it wasn't super clean against Radiance. They did make some mistakes, but that's to be expected for a team that's still trying to get used to making this roster change. I really do think that this team has great potential at the high level. Renegades, on the other hand, I mean, I'm just surprised that the fan vote's so split when both these teams had doubleheaders last week.
Yes.
Renegades got 0-2'd, and then eUnited went 1-1, but 2-1 against the top team in the league. So just a little surprised at the fan vote that way. I think that eUnited is certainly trending upward.
Right, it was a Rival loss for Renegades and then SSG just prior to that. Some variety in the God pool, as we've seen. Obviously, Scream bringing out Bastet a little bit. We were excited to see that, and variety has played Tyr, Sobek, Osiris. I mean, the kind of shift in nature there maybe lends itself to some interesting play styles here for eUnited. Who do you maybe want to see stand out today in this squad, or is it more of a whole team effort?
I think I'm still looking for Genetics to continue to get comfortable and improve at the SPL level. Obviously, his presence on this team, his shot calling, his mind for the game has really helped out eUnited. But we still haven't seen him be mechanically up to par in my mind. And so that's what I'm looking forward to seeing today is how comfortable Genetics is looking in that duo lane.
Hey, Genetics is absolutely important to this team. And I had a chance to sit down with Genetics and here are the vibes they're feeling with this eUnited team prior to their matchup against the Renegades. All right, thanks, guys. Here with Genetic support for eUnited, talking to them about their matchup up against the Renegades. First off, Genetics, how are you guys as a team, kind of in this chemistry building phase since you've come in, especially with you being over in Europe? How has that dynamic sort of worked for you guys over the last few weeks?
It's been a little bit weird to get used to because of like European players and North American players, but getting used to everyone's personalities, like especially Scream as well. Like players that have different like personalities is really hard to get used to, but I think we're getting somewhere. And I think we look pretty good against pretty much every team we've played against for at least 1 game, sometimes 2.
Right. Yeah, and over the last 4 games, 2-2, but to your credit, couple of those losses, you guys have looked good. More recently, though, you guys get a win over Radiance, one of the higher-seeded teams in the league. How important was that win, do you think, to eUnited as a team to maybe get some momentum and some confidence moving forward?
Yeah, it's definitely important. I mean, I feel like we were close to being Sanguine and we were close to being Rival, and to kind of drop games against top teams, especially when they've made a roster change to try and improve and they're still getting bad results. It was kind of irritating, even though we knew we could play better. But to get the Radiance win was really important for morale, for sure.
Yeah, and it was an awesome-looking win for you guys as well. You play against the Renegades today, though, a team that is, admittedly pretty close to you guys in the standings. What's your take on where the Renegades maybe stand as a team?
I think they're a really weird team. They don't seem very consistent on many things apart from their team fights. I think the one thing they're good at is whenever they make a call, they stick to it. And you can see that with Barra and Ven kind of jumping in with the team. And I think that's really, really, really good. I think they're probably best in the league at doing that. But otherwise, they're kind of random. I'm not really sure.
Well, tough to expect what to see out of them today. Genetics, thanks for your time and best of luck against the Renegades.
Cheers.
Always good to talk to Genetics, and obviously realizing, as we've kind of said, Ryan, that there's some kinks to work out, but they're feeling some confidence. They've obviously taken games and some sets off some of the top teams. I am curious. I want to continue the thread from Genetics over to the Renegades, though. Do you draw any similarities to Genetics play style to someone like Awesome Jake that we see over for the Renegades?
Not really. I mean, Genetics is a guy who wants to play things like Terra and use those horror assaults to be creative on the map. Jake wants to Fafnir jump into the entire enemy team and then let whatever happens. I mean, Jake's playstyle is pretty unique to Jake, and that's what makes him really effective a lot of the time. I think he's been an incredible piece for this Renegades team. Inconsistency is going to be a thing for a player who's just getting used to playing at the SBL level for the first time, but for me, Jake has been far ahead of schedule on what I expected. I think he's been a real contributor to this team.
Agreed, and he'll have an important part to play today as well. Kind of your snapshot of the Renegades, though, coming into this matchup. 70% of the fan vote, as we mentioned. 2-2 in their last 4 games, and there seems to be a theme with 2-1 losses to Rival, 2-0 loss to SSG, as we talked at sort of at the top of this segment. Now, I do want to zoom in a little bit on Lasbra, though, aggro. Close to the top kills in the league and a healthy variety of gods played as well. He's played 5 separate gods in the last 6 games. Only Erlong Shen in the jungle has been duplicated for that. How important is Lasbra to the success of this Renegade squad?
Absolutely monumental. I mean, he's a corner piece, really, of this Renegades team. In the games where they win early on, it's always because Lasbra starts to snowball and get ahead. But that's been the problem on the flip side, is that when he doesn't get these early kills, sometimes he still spends too much time looking for them, and as a result falls behind. I think that when Lass is on his game and he's all over the map and he's getting these early kills, ganking lanes effectively, it's going to be very, very effective. But teams have realized that that's part of Renegades' plan A, and as a result, I think teams are playing safer in the early game, being a little bit more willing to give things up than maybe they weren't before, but knowing that if we can get to late game, that's not exactly where the Renegades might shine. They might want to get leads a little bit earlier than what we're giving them. And so I think that adjustment is really just the next step in Lasbra's evolution as an SPL player. Remember, he doesn't have a whole lot of jungle SPL experience. He spent a large portion of last year playing in mid lane, and it took a little bit of time for him to come back over into the jungle. I think that he's doing just fine, but certainly still has some room to improve as a player and really elevate himself into that next tier of jungler.
Well, if he elevates himself, this is going to be an even more dangerous team to deal with. Venenu, though, in the mid lane for the Renegades, has been pretty consistent with the gods he's liked to play and had some decent performances over the last 5-6 game stretch as well. So let's jump down and hear how he's feeling prior to this big game. All right, guys, I'm here with Venenu, mid laner for the Renegades, playing against eUnited here today. Now, Venenu, I think you guys and maybe every other team in the league at the moment is kind of hard to pin down with anyone able to take games, sets off of anyone. And a couple of your losses were in 3 games to a couple of the teams in the top 3 in this league. Sort of as an overarching question, where does the confidence stand right now for you guys as a squad?
It stands pretty high, I'm pretty sure. We were pretty down when we lost to, I think, Rival and SSG, to be honest with you. We thought we could win those games, but we just kind of messed up a little bit. I don't like to blame it on like us messing up. I mean, they just played better than us for sure.
Sure.
But I mean, we're at the point now that we can nail down like where our mistakes are and then where we can start playing better. So we're kind of like nailing it down in scrims, like try-harding in scrims and everything like that, like just so we can nail down our problems and then we can expand from there and see what we can do.
Well, maybe that kind of answers the next question then. Obviously, your most recent game, a 2-1 loss to Rival, very close set. But with how Rival have been playing, is there a such thing as a moral victory to you guys, or is a loss and it feels bad kind of no matter how close that set was?
It definitely feels worse if it's a super close set.
Right.
Especially like I believe they're the first place team right now. And you know, when you take them to 3 games and it's like a super close 3rd game and then you lose, like it doesn't feel any better if like you win or lose. Like there's things that you can learn from whether you win or lose. So things even if we won, like we would still watch back the VODs for sure and be like, okay, we got to fix this, and this because we messed up this. Like this should have been cleaner, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. Well, you guys did look good in that set, maybe just around the end. Rival was able to take it away. eUnited, though, today, a team very close to you guys in the standings, another team that's kind of been hot and cold. What's confidence like going into this set? Maybe what's your take on eUnited as a team?
I think they're really good right now. I think they got better with Genetics for sure. They play with him much better, and I think he brings a new outlook into like competitive. We haven't seen like people like abuse the Horus ults like he did. Like it was really, really clean stuff that he did, and it like kind of blew up all over the league, and everyone was like, "Oh, Horus is like super OP. Look what you can do," and stuff like that. So we're definitely like we hard looked at Genetics, and we're like, "Okay, we got to do this. Like, let's see how he plays." We watched him, how he plays, where his mistakes are, because he's still new, so he always has mistakes, and so. Yeah, we kind of just did a research on them, see what they pick, ban, and stuff like that. Look what their like consistencies are and their non-consistencies are and stuff like that.
Genetics versus Jake. That's going to be a fun one to watch here today. Venenu, thanks for chatting and best of luck.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one.
You too. Hey, well, one thing I mentioned kind of in both interviews is how important this set is because of how close these two teams are in the standings. If the Renegades are able to win, they'll tie right up there with eUnited. If eUnited are able to win, they'll bump themselves a little bit further up. So ever so important with how close this league has absolutely been. I kind of want to leapfrog off of that, though, Aggro, right through with Venenu. And this will be maybe more, and not maybe, it definitely is more pick ban centric. He's been one of the mid laners, I think, that has really leaned in to this Nuwa pick. Is that something you expect to be important in the pick ban phase here today?
We haven't seen Hurry play it a whole lot, so I don't know that that's going to be something that eUnited is necessarily looking to take away. Nuwa is a pick that really does insulate you for the late game. It's a very, very hard god to dive, and that's her greatest strength, is that she's really, really difficult to kill quickly enough that she won't get her most important damage off, which is that ultimate. And the way that eUnited's been playing, they've taken a lot of games to the later stages. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a secondary ban, but for the most part, it is giving up a lot of pressure in mid. Nuwa is certainly not the best 2v2, 3v3 skirmisher. So I wouldn't be surprised to see eUnited either ban it in the second phase or not worry about it too much at all and try to get Herwin something that gives them a little bit more pressure in that mid lane.
Right, might be more Renegade-centric in the pick ban phase. Let's see where, if at all, Nuwa is prioritized as we get into picks and bans for game number 1 between Renegades and eUnited. We kind of on the flip side of that coin, though, I maybe need to have a conversation about Hurry win, because I feel like in some of eUnited's wins, or I don't, a large percentage of them, it's been Hurry win in this middle lane. So maybe on the flip side, if you're not going to focus out variety, do you think Renegades maybe feel a pressure to look at Hurry win a little bit extra in their bans, or maybe even a pick or two?
Maybe an early pick prioritization to take it away from him. Something like Discordia could go over to Venenu. But for the most part, I think one of Hurry's best strengths as a mid laner is that he has a really, really wide god pool. We saw him play Ullr a whole lot towards the beginning of the year. You could play the Giannis, maybe one of the only players in the league who's going to play Giannis at a super high level in his current state. I mean, you've got him on Discordia. You can play Poseidon, all this kind of stuff. I think that Hurwin has shown throughout his career that he's a very, very versatile mid laner. And so I don't know if I'm Renegades that I really care that much about trying to take him out in picks and bans. I think that he's going to get something he's comfortable on either way. I think you have to try and make him uncomfortable with the pressure that you create and setting Scream behind and Genetics behind and that kind of stuff. I think that's a little bit more of a simplistic way to deal with Hurwin in the mid lane.
Right. Well, there is a mid lane ban here. eUnited will take Ryangen off the table. You mentioned awesome Jake Fafnir jumping into the entire enemy team. Won't be seeing that either. eUnited maybe a little bit shaken to have to deal with that. So Fafnir banned out first overall from eUnited. Now Horus, I think that's something we did figure. Maybe difference in play styles as far as supports go. but the god pool is potentially very similar, and Horus is absolutely a god where there's a similar string between Jake and eUnited on the other side.
Absolutely. I think that one of the great strengths of this new eUnited roster is that they're putting pressure on every single team to really have to keep in mind where this Horus is going in the draft. Are you forcing them to ban it, or are you forcing them to first pick it? Here we see the first pick for Jake, and this is a god that Jake played week 1 and looked very good on at his debut. I think that this is, or maybe it was week 2, but pretty early on in the SPL.
Yep.
I think that this is the type of god that he can excel on. It's going to let him play aggressively in the laning phase. It's going to let him try and make plays around the map. I've got no problem with it, but eUnited can basically bet that this is exactly how picks and bans should have gone with the Horus early on. The Kali, on the other hand, I don't know if eUnited would have necessarily expected that. And Kali Nuwa being hovered now for Renegades is very, very late game focused. That is,
It is.
2 gods that really take a long time to ramp up. Afro instead is interesting. This is cool because Kali Afro, really, really hard to deal with. I mean, you've got Undying Love to get Kali out of these CCs and give her immunity. Then she becomes unable to be killed. But Ven played Afro, again, pretty early on in the SPL and did not look particularly good on this pick. And anytime Afro is on the battlefield, it's always, is that Afro player going to win you or lose you the game? Because there's no in between. This god is very binary in that way. She's so impactful, but you have to execute at a high level. I don't think Venenu did that last time he picked this Aphrodite, so we'll see if these few weeks of practice have been enough to raise that pick up to where it needs to be.
And she's hovering right around a 32% ban rate, I think it was. But I would argue if you zoom in on the last, 2 or 3, 4 weeks of the SPL, that's closer to the high, nearing the 100% mark, because if first couple weeks of the SPL, teams hadn't really dove into the Aphrodite pick just yet. And I think as of late, she has really been identified as a need to be banned. So banned a third of the time, but maybe recently a little bit more. I got to ask, though, Chernobog maybe along a similar vein. High win percentage, still relatively low pick percentage, but starting to kind of increase here in this meta. What's the deal with Chernobog and why some teams are maybe starting to lean towards him as their hunter?
Global pressure, really, really good. I mean, it lets you get to a whole lot of team fights earlier on. ADCs are a little bit less impactful at the early to mid game than they were in previous years. Chernobog doesn't suffer from that because he can join fights in mid or on the right side of the map. And Snoopy on this pick is a signature pick for him. The Snoopy Bog has been a big pick for him
Right.
for a while, and I think that it's going to be strong here for eUnited. I like the early prioritization of it.
And Pele in the jungle now for eUnited. Xing Chen likely in the support role there. Cerberus, talk about low percent pick rate. Obviously, have won 50% of one out of the 2 games, I think, where we've seen this Cerberus. Do you like Renegades rounding out their draft with the Cerb?
I do. They were looking like they were going to be pretty physical heavy. This gives them a magical soul laner. I love it in conjunction with the Aphrodite for that prot shred from the Ghastly Breath. And now that eUnited is locked in Hell, between Pele, King Arthur, and Hell, that Cerberus passive of that anti-heal is going to get a lot of value from what eUnited has drafted.
That's eUnited picking Hell in to the Cerberus. Any question marks around that, maybe?
Not really. It's away from the Cerberus. It's not a great pick in general against Cerberus, but it's not in the same lane matchup, and it won't be mid too often. I'm just surprised that United don't go full pressure and just look at this draft from Renegades. Does Hell really make you outscale this draft? That's my question. I think that I would have gone for something a little bit more pressure heavy in the mid lane. Hell does bring some pretty good wave clear, but it's high risk. And so if Lasbra and Jake are there consistently, it could cause problems here for Heroin.
Well, it's Renegades versus eUnited. It's game 1, and we've got Finch and Gore on the call.
We absolutely do. Thanks, Dolson and Aggro on the desk. Going to be Finch and Goremizer heading into this rematch between Renegades and eUnited. And Gore, this will be a rematch fraught with sustain between the Aphrodite and the Hell here at this point. That means to me that we're probably going to be seeing some late game action. You expecting the same thing here?
Yeah, honestly, a lot of these fights are probably going to feel very prolonged. I mean, you look at just the Afro Hell, then you add in a little bit of what that Horus is going to bring for Renegades, and it's just so difficult to overcome the amount of healing. And I'm thankful for it because that means at least 6 times probably throughout this game I'll get to mention a different anti-heal item. Ideally, as these teams pick them up, like Brawlers, your Divine Ruins, etc., etc., those are going to be very important for both sides, maybe a little less so for Renegades since they do have that Cerberus who has a little bit built in.
Well, already some aggression from Awesome Jake on the left-hand side of the map as he had just been harassing Genetics. They move around the map. Probably not too much that will be coming from it, but you mentioned how these teams are going to have to pick up anti-heal in that game. It almost goes without saying at this point that with these types of drafts, you're absolutely going to need it, but you're also going to make sure that you're getting that max value out of it. You're not going to be able to stop the out-of-combat healing from an Aphrodite or a Hell. It's going to be substantial, so in those fights, when you see your moments, you have to make sure you're pulling the trigger. But look at all this extra presence in left. Scream now rotating over as well to make sure they can defend their purple from Renegades, as well as Lasbro on this side of the map. He's grabbing Oracles.
And this is something that eUnited have done really, really well overall. And I feel like Renegades are maybe playing kind of, well, it's call and answer right now. United move over, you see Scream come over, and then you have Lasbro kind of rotate to match. But Scream has been over here every single time Snoopy starts to lose, even just a little bit of pressure in this lane, because of how much of a win condition he can be, especially on this Chernobog. You know he's going to be pretty safe, I think, in a 1v1 up against Barra until, late game comes online and it's just Shibalanke doing tons of damage to you. But maybe getting in that early lead, if Scream finds a pretty decent gank, it changes everything. And that's something that eUnited have been doing almost regularly, like clockwork, is having that early rotation.
I like that from him. You don't want to be too, maybe, predictable. There are some times where Lasbro can be that level of predictable. He loves to come around for these 2-minute ganks or so on the left-hand side. Doesn't look like he's quite going for that same timing here. But I think there's something to that consistency for eUnited sort of recognizing that they like to play through Snoopy. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think this has been Snoopy's best year here so far. I think there have been times where he's looked a lot better. But we know that high-end potential from Snoopy is always there. And they want to make sure, especially get someone like a Shibalanke that can kind of bully you out a little bit with that free poke he gets from the Bola, that he doesn't fall too far behind it.
It's the same conversation I like always when Aggro brings it up, because it is the consistency of a player more than it is how high is their ceiling versus how low is their floor, right? If you can have great days, but you can have equally abysmal days, then we don't know whether or not you're going to be easy enough to, just slot into a team or be the hard carry that you need consistently enough to make this team a truly top team. But if, you're always going to have a, similar performance as you did the last time, which is something we see more out of solo laners now than anything, then that's something to rely on. And Snoopy, as you mentioned, maybe not the best of days all the time, but his floor is still pretty high up there, so he can still be consistently good for United.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of even Snoopy's worst day, if I'm being honest, right? So I'm right there with you. This guy is certainly an excellent player, and if it's felt like maybe he hasn't quite been at the level that we're used to here this year, it's just because we know how high that ceiling can be for him at times. We talked a good bit, though, Gore, about how we thought there might be some early presence here on this left-hand side of the map, but even though Scream and Lasbra kind of peeked their head in a little bit, there haven't been any ganks here early, and I don't think that that's too surprising. Both of these teams have got to feel like they've got a pretty decent shot in these late game team fights. So I don't know, man. I don't think there's any particular reason that you have to rush. What do you think here? Is there a squad that you would rather see maybe be a bit more active here early, or is this the right pace?
I like the pace, I think, for both squads, but I feel like eUnited could try to shut down Jake a little bit more this early on. Like, try to slow that Horus ramp down just enough to make it a little more difficult, because Renegades, a lot of the fights they've had, even when they're losing games, you'll see Jake, prior to the last, maybe 10 minutes, have an incredible slash line. I mean, there was one point a couple weeks ago, maybe it was last week, he was 1-1 and 11. Like, he was a part of 12 of the 12 kills they had at the time. And it's those moments when your support is a part of everything you're doing and helping set things up. They really are carrying the game for you without getting all the kills. And Jake has been doing a really swell job of that since he's joined the Renegades here. And so maybe slowing him down slows the pace down for Barra, slows down Lasbra, and it takes those carries offline for Renegades.
It has been a good year here for Jake. There are a ton of question marks, I feel like, around this guy when he came into the league, and he has largely answered them. We've seen the standard picks from Jake, like on this Horus, very much a meta pick, even though we didn't see him pick your band at all yesterday, I don't think, but certainly standard here. We've also seen him play some of his weird, more off-the-wall picks that are a little bit more standard, awesome Jake fare. So I think that he's stayed true to his own play style and has shown that he can kind of play a lot of what everyone else has done. It's been a great start to him here so far, as Genetics is lurking around, maybe trying to see if they can take this red, but if he's here by himself, there's just no way.
Yeah, he's more just living Sentry Ward, right? We just go around, see what he can see, and just make sure that he has the control, or at least his team has the control they need. But, you know, the one thing I think has been really great about this, because we've had a really wide kind of splattering of different gods that have come into Season 7, which is something that normally you get to see maybe like 30, 35 different gods that come through, but it feels like we've just had such a wide variety. But Jake just kind of peeked in once with that tier support, and then it disappeared since then. Like, it came in, it did its job, got banned, I guess, a little bit there, but it could also be seen as like, oh, you take it away from SOT and Jake. That's always worthwhile. But those are the things I think that give maybe Renegades that edge, is even if this game doesn't go well, or it does exceedingly well for them, and next game Horus is gone, he's got that nice flexibility and that ability to reach deeper into his pockets and pull out just the weird stuff no one else wants to run.
Flexibility is strong for the team. We saw the ward from Genetics on that red buff the last time they were on it. We talked about how he definitely wasn't going to be able to take it that time on his own, but I wonder if that's foreshadowing an attempt from eUnited to try and be there for that red buff spawn the next time. They've got the information on when it's going to be respawning that time, and if they want to try and get active around this Pele, who might be able to scrap a bit sooner than this Kali, that red buff gore might not be a bad idea.
That's something Scream should be able to flex on. The only downside is that even though it's high execution, they still have an Aphrodite on their side, which, I mean, that's a free Aegis, essentially. It's a free beads, depending on how the fight goes. So unless you can force that ult out early from Venenu, I mean, that's just a free safety without having to use his own beads to get out of that engagement. Or for Lasbra, being able to play a little more looser as a Kali early game, knowing that you do have a safety net, and a pretty big one at that. If you have a Horus stun for your peel, a Horus heal to keep you alive, an Aphrodite linked to you, it just gets to be a lot easier to jump into a fight that might be a losing fight and still walk away okay.
I thought there might be some action here, but the answer is no, as it turns out. Scream is showing presence on the right side of the map again. We saw him earlier when all the buffs were down on the map, kind of lurking near Solo to see if there was an opportunity, and then he just took, instead, the Totem of Ku and left. Looks like he wanted to show a little bit more presence, but so far, Solar Troll has had a lot of pressure over Variety in this lane matchup, and now that Variety has those boots, we might see that matchup go a bit differently, but I think that Scream's kind of been moving around the map and realizing that there aren't quite as many opportunities as he might have expected this early on for him to find some ganks.
Yeah, I feel like we have 4 names that we're going to bounce through, probably the most in this set, and it is, you know, Lasbra versus Scream. Where are they? What are they accomplishing? And Genetics and Jake, because those 4 are going to be the ones that kind of set the pace and dictate everything here. And Scream, I mean, he's top kills on his team. He's top deaths on his team. He's top first bloods on his team. He gets everything running for him. Every time I update my stat sheet, I have to write his name down, maybe too much for eUnited. This is a slow pace for him, and even seeing him kind of back off is surprising. I think it goes into what we were saying earlier, where late game, especially with healers, you're just going to feel better about it. Now that he's finished that Brawlers, he might be more active.
This could be trouble for Variety. There's a big gank coming. It's not just that Lasbra's here, but Venenu on the way too. They even used the ultimate from Barracuda to make it happen, so Lasbra blinks in to cut off the path, but it can be so hard to lock down King Arthur, especially when Snoopy can suddenly show up. That forces the destruction out from Lasbra to buy some time, but they're getting some backup from Scream, who rotates into the backside. First blood for eUnited as they punish SOT and the long-time die from the Renegades.
And right now, Jake is just trying to peel and make sure Genetics doesn't find anything more off of that. Lasbra just barely getting out. Even Venenu just barely getting out of this one. And that's a lot of control for eUnited. It might just be 1 kill, but look at their positioning on the map. You're not even able to get too much done as Barra over there in the left lane. And so you have to forfeit a lot of this early game control that has been this kind of tug of war, push and pull, over to eUnited now, knowing that they have that presence and pressure on top of you if you're Renegades.
And we talk about this a lot, Gord. There's so many different ways, I feel like, to use your solo lane lead to try and help the team. You can rotate and try and be involved in fights. I feel like that's the fine okay method. He'll move over from solo lane pretty early a lot of the times. But what Variety does there with that proxy farm is kind of pull Renegades over to his side of the map, man. And even with SFT and Lasbra and Venenu all there, he buys enough time for the rotational power of Chernobog to kind of show its head, I feel like, on this right side of the map. Is it the right call from Renegades to even try and kill Variety there, or was it just execution on that gank, or what did you feel about that fight in general?
Once Lasbra blinked, that was the overengage, right? Like, there was a certain point where Variety was out, but they wanted the kill so badly that they recommitted to it. And that's when it started to fall apart. That's when you see Chernobog go up into the air and Snoopy all of a sudden is on this side of the map because Lasbra seems like a free kill. I mean, he's almost on a silver platter for them with 4 people rotating in. And it's just that question of, you go in, you're Kali. You're not necessarily known for slashing people down at 8 minutes into the game. You're waiting for 18 or even 28 minutes before you're just able to 1v1 and eliminate Variety like that. So I think maybe a little bit of an overcommit and maybe a tunnel vision into that first blood there for Renegades just bites off more than they can chew.
Yeah, I got to agree with you on that one, Gore. Renegades really wanted that kill in a Variety and were not able to find it. Stuck around a bit too long. I'm a bit surprised. I mean, we would have thought that it might be eUnited who were the ones who were active first with that Chernobog, with that Pele in the jungle, as opposed to the late game Kali for Lasbra. But it was Renegades that looked for that gank and couldn't find it under the King Arthur and ended up kind of forcing eUnited's hand. They're like, all right, if you want to scrap, I feel like we're better at it at this point, but we'll take it. And it does favor them for that first blood. They're about 2,000 gold out in front as well at this point in the game too, Gore. So United now with a nice, cozy lead, a little more than 2,000, 2,600, 2,700 experience. Not bad at all for the 11.5-minute mark, especially with really only one fight that's happened so far.
And realistically, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, kind of a call and answer. You see Renegades kind of poking their heads forward and seeing how eUnited respond, and both of these teams have that push and pull. The problem is the global ult that Barracuda is going to be able to drop just doesn't have the same impact as Chernobog. Chernobog can say, okay, slow down, everybody, wait, let's get a look at this. Oh, I need to be over there, and then he's in the fight. Whereas for Barra, he can pop his ult and be like, guys, I'm in left, good luck. Like, I'm not going to be able to make it over there in time. And those moments, I think, are going to play such a huge role, just because eUnited can respond to Renegade's questions and calling way faster, and maybe even more, I guess, potent than the Renegades are expecting.
That's what it's felt like here so far. At least in this early game, eUnited have had that response. It's a good time, though, I think, to do some item roundups here at Gormizer. You already saw Doug highlight those light anti-heal items earlier on. The Brawlers for Scream, the Contagion for Awesome Jake. It's worth noting the Rod and Tahuti there for Ven. We like this on our healers, that passive working, even if it's on your own teammates, to give them a little bit of extra heal when they're low. Plus the crit coming out here early from Snoopy looks like Rage. You might be seeing that Poison Star build coming out from him. How do you like this early itemization we're seeing?
I like it. I think for Snoopy especially, it's going to make it a lot easier. His target, I kind of highlighted it on a 1v1 against Barra, maybe it being a little rough late game because of how Xbalanque is, but realistically, Snoopy doesn't care whether or not it's Barra. He really wants to shut down Lasbra and Vin, and honestly, being able to crit an Aphrodite down to low health, or at least force her ult so she has to play it even safer, makes it a lot easier for someone like Scream then to follow up, or Herowind even, with the damage that Hell can output, to clean up those last couple of kills.
Might give them some surprise burst out of this Chernobog, who got off to a good start already with that first blood, right? 1-0-0, and I feel like it's harder to find a way to better leverage a hunter who gets a little bit ahead than to get them started on that crit right away. So Snoopy in a good spot. We don't normally see the Rod this early on, but Venenu making it work for him, even with it being a bit more expensive, and he should be in a pretty comfortable spot too, as Snoopy has his beads forced out on the left-hand side, and he ults. I wonder how much pressure he felt that he was under, comes back down, and now they can look for this damage of the Awesome Jake with the Herowind gank, but there's just not a whole lot here. That's pretty good from Jake to get the ultimate and the beads out from Snoopy.
If Genetics was about 3 seconds faster there, then that probably results in some kills for eUnited, but unfortunately I think the rotation that they wanted to, being able to come over, have that huge spin to win, throw him right back into the waiting arms of Snoopy, it just didn't happen, and it wasn't there in time to make anything come out of it. So it's a huge one for Renegades to maybe get some more pressure on that left-hand side.
Well, both our solo laners are here, so you can expect a fight, and Scream takes a ton of damage early. Can't even escape. That's big for Venenu to find that kill. They want to get right into the thick of it, but Lasbra's low. Procs that destruction and uses it to get back out of there. Awesome. Jake even ults back in. So despite all these low HP bars, no more kills. I say that until Lasbra falls to Genetics, and SOT won't be denied. He's in the back line finding more. A 2-for-1 so far favoring Renegades, and they might be able to find more. Genetics goes down as well, and they're still not slowing down here, Goremizer. SOT is stepping on the gas, and maybe now they can collapse onto Variety.
You see some of that anti-heal playing a huge role here. Herwin just isn't able to hit as hard as he wants, and that's 2 more kills.
How do they find a kill in there somehow? Herwin is able to at least get one of the Barracuda, but a 4-for-2 overall favoring the Renegades in that battle. And Gore, how did that go so wrong for eUnited? Renegades were able, I think, to trap a couple members early on in that one.
It comes down to the amount of peel one side has versus the peel that you see out of the other, and that is to say Jake and Solar Troll kind of stick with their main carries. Fortunately, they kind of put Lasbra up as the sacrificial lamb, but he's chased down by Genetics, of all people, who uses his blink to try and close the gap and to get that kill successfully. But you invest so much as Genetics to shut down just the Kali that Farah's over there hanging out with 2 tanks and having the time of his life. You've got anti-heal in the Contagion, plus the anti-heal from the Cerberus, so Herwin isn't able to keep the healing up for his team. And then slowly but surely there, it was just ticking them down like a checklist for the members of eUnited and how to get rid of them.
Despite that fight, eUnited still hold on to the lead here at this point, Gore, but it is a bit weaker than where it once was. Only about 1,000 in terms of gold, and the experience actually has been pulled back in the other direction. I wonder how much of that is just SOT over Variety, because I think Herwin is still ahead of Venenu in terms of levels at this point. Yeah, that's exactly right. Herwin 15-14, but SOT is 16-15. Everywhere else just about even. So the Renegades, despite the fact that that fight favors them so much, this game's still pretty close to even. They brought experience in their favor, but not quite gold, as the Gold Fury had to be reset by eUnited. A good ultimate from Barracuda might have scared them. Now Genetics being locked down too, but a good cleanse from Herwin allows the disengage, but Renegades pick the Fury back up and are able to find the objective.
And now Genetics is just trying to look for anything to bring this one back, and they're looking like they're going to go into the air. Jake wants to keep going.
That's right, he's going to use To the Skies to provide some shielding to help out the team. Lasbra will be the bait, is able to reposition quite nicely, so maybe they can lock down Variety on the left-hand side, but the King Arthur 2 slippery Scream comes back in and pays for it. Good lockdown from Awesome Jake, and Barracuda is able to find the kill. Now Variety, seeing the low health bars, wants to move back in, but great spacing from Renegades make it tough. Genetics comes back in as well, and maybe Variety can now find the cleanup he wanted. Herwin gets one too. Genetics adds one on to the kill feed, and suddenly eUnited have found a 3-for-2, and if Herwin can get this kill into Jake, he can make it even worse.
It's going to be a big one, not only there, but there's still Genetics chasing down Solar Troll. Now, level 14 versus level 17, and 2 Guardians, not necessarily going to be the end-all, be-all of the game, but I think Solar Troll being forced this far away opens up exactly the rotation, for eUnited there, to the Pyromancer, maybe even the Fire Giant. They have hell healing. They can potentially keep that up. They just have to hope Genetics doesn't die in the process.
This feels risky for him, but the DPS is there. They're starting to burn it, and now they're transferring it back over to Snoopy to let him take the damage. And with this little bit of health they have, I mean, I think they should be able to do it. There is no one from Renegades on the way. Once Scream is here, he can take some of that aggro if even needed. But I think they balanced this well, but they got to be careful. SOT is close. SOT blinking in. Renegades able to take it away at the last minute with eUnited doing all that work. A heartbreaker for them that they couldn't burn it faster.
And Finch, it's not even like, oh, well, at least 3 of them were still dead. All 5 members of Renegades now have the Fire Giant. They get the Gold Fury, they get the FG, they get the Pyromancer, and they only did the work for one of them. The only thing they took from 100 to 0 was the Pyromancer just now. The Gold Fury was left for him. SOT just kind of walked in there, and that's where those cooldowns come in handy. He still had his teleport up. He's been walking the old-fashioned way to these team fights on the left-hand side, and so he was able to get over there much faster than I think anyone, even myself, was prepared for.
What a game it's been, though, Goremizer, at this point. We had the beginning of the game with almost no action, but then all of a sudden you have this pacing, and this is a look back at how this Fire Giant gets stolen. Just great timing from SOT to be able to blink in and close that gap, but all of a sudden now, there's so much action. Scream getting aggressive, but Lasbra still has the destruction. That's the turnaround play, and suddenly everything is coming up Renegades. That felt a bit like maybe even frustration from Scream, trying to force that kill. And now look at the left lane. That's a tier 2 tower for the Renegades. eUnited started to crumble here, I think. Gormizer, they don't know how to respond.
Yeah, no, it's so dangerous to do an FG in a moment in the game like that. It's actually maybe the opposite of what Renegades did earlier. Renegades had that 4-for-2 trade, and they let go of the Gold Fear, even though they had a considerable lead and maybe could have forced it to happen. There, eUnited didn't really have the ability to force it to happen, but they still tried to. And now, I mean, you were so close already, but this huge swing into the lead for Renegades is huge.
That is the ultimate now on cooldown for Genetics, but same for Venenu. Ends up using that Undying Love to try and make sure nobody gets pulled, though I don't think anyone ended up in any actual danger. So 2 tier 2 towers have now dropped, the one in mid and the one in long. The short lane tier 1 dropped, but eUnited there to defend the tier 2. But Renegades have already done the damage. About 6,000 gold now out in front. What a swing from a game that was so close, like 7 minutes ago, I want to say. Gormizer was dead even. And now all of a sudden, Renegades with pretty close to a stranglehold on the map.
I mean, honestly, you go 4 minutes ago, and we're still just in a fight kind of deciding everything. It's just so interesting to see how a domino effect, I guess, it comes through.
That's what it felt like, yeah.
Credits and maybe kudos to Solo Troll for not using his relics. Like, it's so weird to think, yeah, you didn't use them in the team fight, and so it helps your team later on being able to have that huge rotation, especially now that, you know, hey, you just had a huge influx of gold. You've taken that lead away from eUnited. But they've invested it so well. You've got a Relic Dagger along with an upgraded Cursed Ankh from Jake. If you want to deal with Hell and, well, kill everybody just a little bit better than you were before, they're going to be able to lock it down. And while there's Divine Ruins, there's Pestilences, there's a Brawler's Beat Stick, and a Cursed Ankh on the side of eUnited, it feels like they're going to have a lot more difficulty getting it into the scenario where they feel perfectly in control and trying to shut down specifically Venenu and Awesome Jake's healing while still, you know, not getting completely zoned off or killed off by SOT, Lasbra, or Jake himself.
It's crazy, though. Renegades are the one with the lead, and yet eUnited were the ones in position around this Fury first. The Oni Fury. What a critical Fury to be spawning at this point, too. Certainly the most valuable of the three, I would argue, at this current game state. So this is going to be a pretty big battle, not just in terms of can Renegades hold on to the momentum, but this could be enough for a big final push from them if they're able to grab the lead. And they've got the Oni Fury low already. Renegades destroy it, and so eUnited step on the gas. This might be their last close fight of the game, so they feel like they have to take it now. But Awesome Jake re-engaged with the ultimate. Barracuda gets away from Variety in the backline, and SOT controls everyone with the big ultimate. He does end up losing his life for it, but he's put his team into a decent spot where they've traded 1-for-1 solo for solo. Genetics falls as well as Venenu able to lock him down now. Irwin low, and Lasbra on the long time gank finds the two-man stun, but ends up getting killed by Scream. He shuts him down before the reset can come through, and Awesome Jake gets the return. It's 3-for-2 in favor of Renegades.
And that was a huge engagement, but a big ending kill there to get rid of Lasbra. It's still chasing down Venenu now. They want more, but Scream, ooh, he bit off more than he could chew.
Yeah, it's a miscalculation there from Scream. They really want this kill to Venenu, and Snoopy is able to do it. He's got so much damage on this Chernobog, but Barracuda, my man who likes to stand tall in these situations, is on his way. The blink in from Awesome Jake, the dash to close the gap. They want this kill in Snoopy. Stun. There is the stun. There's the lockdown and the deicide as Renegade's able to come out on top, though not as cleanly as I think they would have liked.
Not at all. I think the big turning point was Lasbra's death. I wanted to highlight it there, and I didn't expect them to keep chasing each other, but well, eUnited were hungry for some more kills, at least trying to equalize the game state. Unfortunately, they might have given up even more because of that, but Lasbra goes in, has Afro linked to him. Venenu still has ult at the time he jumps in. It's just the communication. Who's going to ult first? Is Lasbra going to have to use his to stay alive? Is Venenu going to use his to keep them going? You know, how is that going to work? And I think there was just enough of a miscommunication that he ends up dying down there. And a late game Kali, I mean, with this many items online, even though it's 0-3 and 5, you put an Aphrodite behind that, and it is a dangerous, dangerous thing for eUnited to handle with. Right. I mean, it comes blaring with a handle with care on it. Because if Lasbra gets into your backline and you can't just burst him down all the way to 0, Venenu's going to keep him alive longer than you would like.
Renegades want their second Fire Giant of the game, and they're going to actually try to earn this one. Genetics is getting popped right now, has to find the disengage. The ultimate there is going to be enough as Lasbra secures the kill. Now Variety is stepping in. They got to make sure they don't walk in one by one to their death. So good work by eUnited. They fall back and reset, and Renegades have to drop the Fire Giant as well. So eUnited can definitely still fight this.
Especially in a 4v5, it's maybe not the easiest, and Jake is looking for the re-engage. If they get rid of Variety here, then Renegades might just give themselves a Fire Giant.
They've made it all the way in between and kind of fractured this fight. Whirlwind and Scream are now off to the side, and
Good
that's
target.
who they're going to make their target. Scream not getting the cleanse there in time, does get the turnaround kill somehow amongst all of that, but will end up losing his life anyway. So now the re-engage. In comes Snoopy along with the rest of the squad, but there's only 3 trying to defend up against the might of Renegades at this point. What a seesaw. What a tightrope walk this game has been as Variety walks in. And if you all were wondering about the back-off damage, well, there it is as Venenu pops him.
Yeah, still does a lot, as it turns out. You don't even have to be there with them. Soul Reaver, as well as that Rada Tahuti, you just have so much magical power as Venenu that your heals are going to be popping off, but it still means your damage can go, especially when you're linked to Solar Troll and he just goes in like this.
It's another bait, gets the beads out from just about everyone, and Jake, as soon as it locks down, has the lockdown. Snoopy will end up falling. Genetics and Herwin have to fully retreat at this point, and now it's Venenu's turn to provide all that sustain, heal everybody back up so they can do this Fire Giant one more time. And look at Herwin and Genetics. They're forced to come back in and try and find some way to contest, but Renegades certainly know it. Renegades happy to just take the fight if they come in too sloppily. It's SOT and Venenu, they're out there front, and Genetics is taking too much damage. Venenu's starting to rip through everyone that comes his way. That's the Fire Giant now for Renegades as they're looking to put a seal on this first game.
Man, you want to look at carry potential for Renegades, and the lowest on my list was probably going to be the Aphrodite. Right next to her would have been the Cerberus of all things, but I mean, at 6-2 and 9 Solar Troll is making sure that that statement does not remain true. I mean, the fact that your Kali at level 20, almost full build, is not outshining your solo laner is just huge for Solar Troll, especially because he just keeps doing this. He runs back there, and what's Herwin going to do? You can't fight him. You can't do anything.
Scream got to the back line, but he couldn't do enough damage there, Gore. It was a good call out from Lasbra to make sure everyone was aware, and SOT has found 2 members and brought them back into Barracuda's awaiting arms. That's 2 more in favor of Renegades, and Awesome Jake wants to keep up this pressure. They'll use the ultimate to reposition towards the left side, but they want to do the full-on dive. He goes right to the back, forces out the ultimate from eUnited. Now the Titan is under siege, down to half health, down to a quarter, and eUnited cannot keep it standing. It's Renegades that are going to come through and strike first.
That Fire Giant steal from SOT was Bane breaking Batman's back. That was the moment for eUnited, just getting shattered for them. Because everything else up to that point is so close, it's so neck and neck. But that one lead, the fact that you get all 5 members with that buff, it gets them towers, they get the Oni Fury there shortly after. And even though the fight around the Oni Fury wasn't very clean, that didn't matter. They had the pressure in the lanes to follow up everywhere they needed to. Renegades maybe a little lucky on when they get that steal, but it's exactly what they need, and they play the lead well.
Gore, I was ready to have this late-game healers match. Have you ever gone into a game and you're like, this could be a pitcher's battle. We got to break that down. It didn't even come to that, I felt like, in this game. Instead, it all blew up right away off that Fire Giant play. Love that we got to do that one together, Gore. That was awesome. Let's get it back over to the desk and have them break it down.
Well, in a game that starts this close, sometimes you can just pinpoint one moment that makes all the difference. And maybe for some of you guys at home, you can pinpoint one skin that makes all the difference in your life. And it could be the new Fey Mantis Arachne skin, available now in the Fey Mantis chest, also available for direct purchase. It's a really neat skin. Make sure to jump in and give it a look. Aggro with me, though, to talk about game 1 in this set, and maybe I'm not too far off there, Aggro. Back and forth in the early game, and there's kind of this one sweeping moment where SOT moves in, takes away the FG, and that's maybe all she wrote for this one.
It's the entire difference maker, because every fight before that was really close, and every fight after that was really close. But the fights before that were close were coming up eUnited. That Hell AoE healing, much more impactful than the single target Aphrodite healing. I mean, it's just great timing by Solo. It's a coin flip fire by eUnited that I think it's an acceptable call to make, and you're just going to lose some of those, and that's kind of the way it goes. They don't have, you know, the Hell Secure isn't great. There's no one that could have zoned because the way that fire was going. I mean, you had to have Snoopy and Hurwinch started up individually. I think that's just one where you got to tip your hat to Solo and say you made a great play. He just was such an impactful player this game on this Cerberus pick. Not just that Fire Giant steal, but initiations, cleanups. How much value do you think his anti-heal passive got that game? Like thousands and thousands of healing that was redirected to him instead. It just was a great performance by SOT this game. And really, I think that eUnited played well in spite of the fact that they lost that Fire Giant. That Gold Fury fight after the fact where they're down 6-7K, they still almost win that. It's really just Jake and Venenu staying alive at the very end, and Venenu played much better on this Aphrodite in comparison to how he played it earlier on in the year. Impressive performance from Renegades, but eUnited losing that Fire Giant, I think, really robs them of a game where I think they could have run away with it had they had that Fire Giant on their side.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm glad you kind of bring up SOT as far as his entire game goes, 6-2-12, so easily the highlight of the game for him is that FG steal, but it's almost a disservice to the rest of his game if we don't mention how good of a game the Cerberus had. Venenu on the Aphrodite was something that maybe we didn't have questions about, but it's not something we've seen him consistently perform on. Obviously, maybe the answer is obvious here. But did you like what you saw from Venenu on this Aphrodite, maybe warranting a return pick at a later date?
Absolutely. I mean, it makes your front line feel unkillable. He was constantly linked to either Jake or SOT and really made those guys do so much more damage. The back-off damage is absolutely absurd. Afro could be so far away from that front liner that it's impossible to hit her, and she's putting out really, really good player damage at the same time coming from them, and really just enabled her front line to play really effectively. So Ven had that was an important game for Ven because he's really, really struggled on this Afro pick earlier on in the year. I think that giving you the threat of picking this Aphrodite and looking good on it really warps picks and bans pretty heavily for the rest of until teams figure out how to beat Afro. Basically, that's kind of the to be determined date because she is really strong if you have a mid laner who can play her well.
Yeah, if you're not going to ban her and you're not going to pick her, you better make sure you know how to play against her. We'll see if picks and bans for game number 2 dictate any of these differences. I think interesting game for Lasbra as well in the sense that I don't think he necessarily played poorly, but maybe it's one of those games where it's just kind of Lasbra's turn to die and the rest of the team for the Renegades just kind of spring out around him. I think Lasbra ends that one at 1-4 with a handful of assists. Do you think maybe specific there for eUnited to just try to put Lasbra down as consistently as they can, but the rest of the Renegades kind of slipped through?
Yeah, I think that was not a game to remember for Lasbra, for sure. I do not think he played that as well as he would have liked. And the most important thing is they come away with the win anyway, so who cares at the end of the day. But I think both junglers really struggled in that game, to be honest. Scream had a lot of very odd decision-making plays, diving too deep, getting baited and that kind of stuff. I thought that he was caught out of position a lot in that game, and Lasbra was largely the same. So I think that both junglers probably need to step it up here in game number 2.
Well, I bring it up because I'm so used to Lasbra just kind of blowing teams out of the water. So a bit different here in game 1, but to your point, Renegades get the win nonetheless. So game 2, what do we have here in the first ban phase? Largely very similar. Yamoja, Camazotz, Uwer taken away for the Renegades. Aphrodite, though, the noticeable difference here for eUnited. Does that open up the doors to some different picks? Remember, instead of the Aphrodite, it was the Raijin in picks and bans game number 1, and maybe the Renegades realize that's a door that opens.
Yeah, Raijin was in that slot, but it felt more like a throwaway ban than anything else. I'm surprised the Renegades are going back to that Raijin instead of just reprising the Horus there from Jake. I thought the Genetics did play pretty well on that Xing Chen, but we've spoken at length about how creative this team is for eUnited with that to the skies. I'd be pretty surprised if Genetics doesn't lock it in right here. Raijin Horus is a really potent combo because the CC and single target damage is really, really potent and hard to deal with. But I do like going back to the Chernobog. It's the King Arthur that I think I would have gone away from. I think that Snoopy had a phenomenal game on that Chernobog. I think that you definitely want to put him back on that. I would have liked to see United go Horus Chernobog right there and really lock in that duo lane and give them some excellent semi-global or global strength on both characters.
Yeah, it's normally, you pick a god first, and you kind of feel like you're picking this god because you're giving up something elsewhere. And if you're going to get the Horus and potentially the Cerberus again for SOT, I'm not sure the Renegades feel as if they had to give up much to lock in that Raijin first overall. Reprisal for the Horus, reprisal for the Cerberus. I think the Renegades have got to be happy with the way these first 3 picks have panned out.
Now, the way that these 2 picks were so effective last game was in large part due to the Aphrodite link on them. So they are losing something in terms of effectiveness from that game 1 draft, but Raijin is as good of a compensation pick as you can ask for as that member. I mean, now you're picking the Terra there for genetics. Kind of expected. It's been his fallback pick pretty consistently, but that Cerberus passive again is going to be very, very valuable against that ultimate in every single team fight. Genetics, how reliably is he going to be able to put down a monolith so he doesn't get picked up by that Cerberus ult? That's going to be hard to do playing from Europe on NA servers here for the SPL. So I think that it's expected that this is where United was going to go with the support pick, but still feel like maybe that we're being so worried about keeping SOT off King Arthur doesn't really pay off that much when he's going to play this well on Cerberus anyways.
Well, Renegades saw what Scream was able to do to some other teams in the league last week with the Bastet, so take that off the table. Won't want to deal with that, and won't give aggro chills here this time around. So some Scream focused in the second round of bans here for the Renegades, and Barracuda focused in the second round of bans for eUnited. Hachiman, X-Ball both taken off the table. Discordia gone as well. Do you tend to agree with the way eUnited have looked at those second round of bans, though, with a heavy Hunter presence?
I mean, Barracuda played really, really well last game, and I think that we didn't really give him enough of a service with how well and how disruptive he was using that Gibalanque ultimate in those team fights. You've got an Afro and an X-Ball. That's really hard to lock down exactly what's happening and who your target prioritization is in a team fight. So keeping Renegades off of what worked for them last game with that Gibalanque does make some sense. There's still good Hunters available. It's not like you're going to be able to ban out the entire pool.
Right.
But it's still... Gibalanque is just one of those gods that you never really want to play against a whole lot because it's just so frustrating in those team fights.
And I remember in pregame I mentioned that Lasbra has been picking up this Erlang Shen in the jungle, and it looks like he will do the same here in game number 2. AMC hovered for Barracuda this time around, and maybe a slight smirk. Is that nervousness or happiness maybe, or a combination of the both?
Yeah, I'm happy if I'm on eUnited if I see the B locked in. I mean, the Stinger is relevant here.
There you go.
Cupid's just the better pick. If you want a cripple on your side out of your Hunter, AMC has one and Cupid has one, but the Cupid ultimate is going to be much more impactful against in hitting King Arthur and Terra. You can put it on the wall where Chernobog has gone into, and then his dash gets canceled the second he comes out of the wall. Bakasura, interesting enough, another cripple here for eUnited. It's something that can chew through Cerberus even as a Guardian. eUnited's composition is really relying on Heroine to bring consistent CC because they don't have great confirmable CC outside of it. And it's another pick that doesn't like seeing Cupid on the other side necessarily, but I've seen a lot more Baka in ranked as of late. It's kind of taken over a little bit. So we'll see if it's able to have some success here at the SPL level.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how all of these new picks pan out. Renegades versus eUnited, game number 2. Let's kick it off.
Thanks, Dawson and Aggro. After the excitement that was game number 1, how could we expect anything differently here, Gore, in game number 2? We're going to be seeing the Cupid from Barracuda, something he likes to play. Benenu on the right, and another popular pick. But on the other side, Scream going to be playing this Bakasura partnered with a Hell. Which one are you most excited for here?
I think it really does depend on performance, so this might change as the game goes on. But I'm looking at the Bakasura. One of the biggest things that Renegades had going for them was this front line. They get the same 2 front lines on their side in terms of the gods. Scream has true damage and can try to beat them up and stop them from being as potent in the late game.
Awesome. Jake going to let Barracuda basically solo farm this first wave while he looks for pressure over near the purple buff. I think he forced Genetics to use the Hand of the Gods over there as well just to secure it. So now the old split that remaining farm is awesome. Jake just starts to walk off on his own. Look at the XP per minute. It's 18. He really hasn't gotten any of this early game farm, but he's putting Barra in a great spot comparatively to Snoopy with the way that he's able to play with this Horus. I think that it's worth talking a good bit about what Jake's been able to do here for this Renegades roster so far.
Yeah, Jake, realistically right now, kind of feels like he is going, hey, I have the ability to stun people, and that's all I need. Level 1 is good enough. I mean, it's not the greatest when you start getting a maybe dip in what you have, level 1 now compared to Genetics level 2. But it's still enough to help set up someone like Barra. Now, like you said, kind of funneling all of it into Barracuda means that he theoretically should start to get ahead here a little bit further than he is already. A little under 100 XP per minute ahead of Snoopy, but start to gravitate that. That means level 3 first, level 4 first, and then, of course, the important one, level 5, getting his ultimate online, maybe being able to help shut down Snoopy a little bit faster.
It's interesting. He's basically given up those first 2 waves to Snoopy to let him solo farm and establish some pressure over here in the long lane too. So I don't mind this start from Awesome Jake really at all. It is going to delay him obviously, but this could potentially be the punish now that Lasper's lurking on this side of the map. And if Genetics gets caught out just like this, then he'll be in trouble. What a great just sequence. I love the way Renegades played that whole first 2 minutes, and it culminates in that kill.
All right. I don't know where to start with this part. I think the first one is, guys, if it's under 3 minutes, I think you ignore walking over to specifically the Chaos side Alpha Harpy, because so many deaths have happened in that area for supports that it feels like it's littered with gravestones. And the other thing that kind of comes in tandem with that is the fact that the Alpha Harpy is nice. It's really good XP, but it's not worth your life, especially this early on as a support. Maybe you can slow down their pressure. Your purple buff, absolutely go to a death to try and defend that, potentially just to ward them away. Alpha Harpy, I don't know if you commit that hard.
Lasper's now on the solo side of the map as well. He's all over the place here this early game, and he's very nearly securing a kill for them. Variety is able to escape and start getting a little bit into healing, but Venenu is rotating over to Renegade, starting to stretch the map in game number 2, and so far, eUnited have not been able to keep up. How does Lasper go from left side early gank there at the 2-minute mark to this short side gank now at the 3-minute mark? Just great work from him.
Yeah, I think that's a guy who just says, well, got my kill, time to go get my speed. Just backs immediately and decides to keep on going with what he wants. And it is that, I guess, mindset of, I'm just going to find as much farm as possible. I don't think sitting over here in the duo lane after killing Genetics is going to be that fruitful. I'm going to get out of here. And I think it just got a little lucky that Variety got as aggressive as he did into that jungle. Last time that happens, and eUnited walked away with first blood because of their rotation, having the Chernobog for Snoopy, made it so much easier to get to that right-hand side of the map, but they weren't ready for it this time around, and Variety did bite off more than he could chew, didn't have that crazy, insane getaway train that we got to see at the beginning of Game 1, and, well, unfortunately for him, he's now in the dirt because of it.
Not a bad start here for Renegades, but look at these charts. At least gold-wise, they're really not that far out in front, Gormizer, as a result of this early start. So it has been nice. They've gotten a couple kills, but it really has not netted them a whole lot. eUnited's done a great job in responding to it and making sure they're farming up nicely. It might be a bit misleading because of how they're maneuvering that lead around. No, they're not out in front that much, but Awesome Jake gave up a lot of farm to Barracuda early, so even though it might not look like it cumulatively, Barra's probably got a little bit of a lead over here up against Snoopy. We're kind of just going to have to see, I think, how it ends up panning out, this early start here for Renegades.
It's all going to be around this Fields of Love, and especially since Genetics went for a blink early, the aggression maybe not going to pay off for him. The one thing about Fields of Love is a sprint helps shut it down, but if you don't have that available, then you can't do much with it.
It's another solo side gank, it's another kill, but Scream is here to try and even the score. Can't block those cone autos, but now that he's back just the basic attack range, maybe they can. Scream eats a minion trying to close this gap onto Lasper on 16 HP, but a great stun from SOT should be enough to get it back out of there. Meanwhile, Herwin has his beads forced out in mid. Awesome Jake, still level 3, by the way, able to survive, and Lasper is still here for some reason. Hello?
And he's gonna throw the pin in. He's even risking himself to try and get this kill onto Scream, and they're looking to chase him down. They might be able to turn this around, especially with that turtle shield.
Can't find the knock up there as Awesome Jake gets the kill onto Herwind elsewhere. Now the Variety's here. There's plenty of turnaround potential. Barracuda falls a little bit too late on that ultimate to get there from Barracuda, as it's a tightrope all across the map here for Renegades. But now 4 for 1 is the overall kill ratio, and Renegades clearly looking to be more active this time.
I don't know if Renegades got the memo that this is a new game. They're playing the same way they were at the end of Game 1. You got to change a little bit with the level lead or level differential. as of right now, they're still getting aggressive. Genetics is really low here, but Jake playing it riskier than anything. I think that's kind of just the way to describe Renegades right now. They are making sure they get these buffs, they take that red buff away, but they are potentially giving up too much in the process.
But I think it's been somewhat calculated even still. Getting 2 sets of beads in that last engagement was awesome, Jake. Got her wins as soon as we got over to see what was going on in mid, and then towards the tail end took the beads away from Snoopy as well. So if they're going to continue to be aggressive, well, they've laid the groundwork for it. United will not be able to escape nearly as easily from Lasber or Awesome Jake's clutches this next time around. It has been a bit chaotic, I suppose, but Renegades, I think, are still keeping some focus within that chaos.
I mean, what was it in the interview? Genetics was talking about the kind of difference between NA players and EU players and things like that. This pace of game is not, I don't want to say foreign to EU players, but it's definitely not their homestay, right? I mean, seasons 1 through 4 even, maybe 5 you can tack onto there. They just had slower. I mean, you'd get a couple of kills maybe by 10 minutes, but to have 5 and 7 is a much faster pace than they're used to. And I think this is kind of that rude awakening, especially for the Terra right now, who just in general has trouble, I would say, keeping up with something like Horus when he's playing at this level. You don't maybe have the crazy peel that you could have. You might be able to hit the stun in time, but he has so many dashes that it's difficult to lock down Jake in these scenarios. And since one of them has a heal attached to it, it's even more difficult to then follow up with enough damage from anybody on eUnited to find a meanwhile and worthwhile kill so far outside of the one on Barracuda.
Look how safe Herwin's playing. That's because his beads are just about to come back up. They will be available now. And also Jake was lurking nearby to try and capitalize, but that was only one half of what he accomplished last time. Snoopy still waiting on his, another 40 seconds there. And with this red buff spawning, this could be the time to try and get aggressive. Awesome Jake has used the To the Skies to get in position for this red buff invade, but there's 4 members of eUnited nearby, and yet again, Renegades are able to strip it away. Not bad from the Order side team, and they're going to keep up the pressure. They're heading over towards gold, but looks like that's only Awesome Jake considering that one. Everyone else is ready to disengage.
Well, and they showcase one of the most important things. Red buff is a really nice buff to have, but honestly, when you're trying to strip something away, you don't care whether or not you pick it up. You just don't want them to have it. You take away that XP, but you also take away the damage bonus they're going to get to that. So now Venenu, especially, I would say having a damage lead over Herwin already, just in terms of kit, is going to be even further ahead. And even though that net worth is just slightly in favor of Herwin right now, I think the farm can start to tick up here for Vin and start to maybe open conversations for this Raijin to make some big plays.
This is impressive, though, from Renegades. I mean, game 1, Gore, I think it'd be pretty fair to kind of call that one down to almost that coin flip on the Fire Giant, right? And just a great individual play from SOT. Despite that, I think Renegades played really well the whole game. But this game here, this has been, at least for these first 9 minutes, a very sort of measured approach from Renegades. Yes, it's been a bit crazy. They've been doing a lot of fighting, but they have been fighting in specific moments around Awesome Jake, around Lasbra, and their early game advantages. And so far, it's really worked for them. They got to hold on to it, though. I can't celebrate a whole lot about just about a little over 1,000 gold lead at 9 minutes, but they have absolutely earned every bit of the lead they've got so far.
Well, a lot of it right now is the CC they have on their team. I mean, last game having to deal with just SOT or Jake, there was already a ton, but now you add in Pin and a taunt from Lasbra. It just is, it's so much to burn beads that every little skirmish they take is potentially walking away with a huge relic burn from eUnited, which then just opens the door for them to make a second gank about 30 seconds to a minute later, potentially finding kills. So trying to lock down Herwin, trying to keep Scream falling behind. Those are the big plays early on to make sure that the late game doesn't open up for eUnited and that Renegades can cultivate that 1,000 gold lead into something bigger.
I like the timing on this Pyromancer, and they'll get a kill onto Genetics off the back of it. They knew Scream had backed in right, and they knew the red buff was up, so a couple members would be there. So they get the kill into Genetics, but can they escape on the backside? Variety has grabbed Lasbra, putting out good damage as well, but SOT has hunted down Herwin in the back line, and Variety is struggling in the 1v3. I said struggling, but he's able to find a kill. Scream gets SOT as well, and Variety is still pushing here on the backside. So eUnited answer back, even with good timing from Renegades. They weren't able to get things cleanly enough. There's the Fields of Love from Barracuda as he rushes his way into the fight, but has to fall back.
Well, gets the peel on the Pyromancer, which is a huge risky play for the approach he took to that fight. I mean, having his dash, being able to get him just slightly on his team's side of the Pyromancer, but Jake was there laying in wait to make sure his hunter could walk away safely. And there's so many little intricacies like that throughout that fight that make a big play. And I think a lot of it is the solo laners 1v3ing, and both of them being able to walk away with a kill, maybe better for Variety since he also walked away with his life, but the fact that they're that big, or at least that potent this early on, I think goes back to showcase why SOT had such a huge slash line last game, and I mean, what you have to keep your eyes open for, because a single play from either solo laner can be the one thing that changes the game.
I think Renegades do tip the scales back in their favor with that Pyromancer grab there on the tail end. They're going to look for Variety, too. They lead with this 9-turn Blessing to get the heal for Lasbra, and he certainly needs it. Stygian Torment doesn't quite find the pull onto Variety, but he is still locked down in between two. Big healing from the King Arthur, though, so Lasbra spreads out a bit, and that buys them some time. Solar Troll doesn't quite have enough damage, and gets the ultimate out from Herwin on the tail end there as well. So I think that still ends up probably being worth for Renegades, even though they don't get that kill. What did you see for?
I think as long as that Hera, Argus comes down, then you're walking away saying, well, at least we got that, right? You did force out 2 huge ults from your team. The taunt, as well as that knock-up, big, wide circle for SOT, means that team fights might be going to be missing from Renegades for another minute and a half while they let those recharge. But you can still maybe apply some pressure, specifically in the duo lane with the way Jake has been set up and what Barra has, his ult recharged back up. I think the conversation is going to end up just coming down to relic usage and which ones are going to be available. Beads right now mostly down for Renegades. So the window, I think, for eUnited to get aggressive, it's closing, but it's still there.
What about this support gap in the experience? It's almost 2.5 levels that's favoring Awesome Jake over Genetics right now. And I feel like in just about every other role, that lead would be huge, but it can be hard, I think, to evaluate those support differences sometimes. How much value can Renegades really get out of that lead?
First off, it blows my mind that the guy who skipped 2 waves at the beginning of the game is ahead of his opponent.
Yeah.
It is the level gain that you get. And so maybe Genetics is still going to be as potent. I mean, you're tanky enough, although his build maybe not quite in the same vein as what you expect from a Terra to be immune to damage as you get late game, right? So he's still pretty squishy at level 8. But it's the levels that Jake will have over Genetics that make the big difference. And the fact that he'll have more Prot Shred.
He'll get to 12 earlier, perhaps could be a big deal. As Scream has to use that ultimate in the middle lane, getting aggressive, forces Benenu to use his ultimate, but doesn't get any other relics out in that exchange. So not a bad response from Renegades, but Snoopy wants to get aggressive. Look at this presence on the left side from eUnited. They're burning the Gold Fury down as well. Lasper is nearby, but I don't know if he's going to make it in time. The Gold Fury's low. The pin comes through, and Renegades steal another objective from eUnited's hands. They've got to do something to improve this objective secure, Gore.
And I don't know what to do. I mean, zone, I guess, is step number 1. Lasper just walks up to him. Solar Troll just walked up to him. They just keep walking right into eUnited. For SOT, that might be, well, too much right now.
Yeah, Scream is just chomping down on him right now. He had a ton of time to essentially free cast in the back. Now Benenu in trouble as well. That's a bit of a miscommunication, I feel like, from the Renegades there. SOT goes way too far kind of on his own. Benenu was there, yeah, but I don't think you just let Scream free cast on you, but it's the same situation for Lasbra, who catches Scream out near his own back harpies, Lasbra's own back harpies, I mean, and is able to find the return kill.
And this, it's just blowing my mind because, I recognize these teams are close. I mean, you got 6th, 7th in the standings when it comes down to it. But what we saw out of them last week kind of led me to believe that eUnited was going to have a pretty decently iron grip, and now Variety is going to be able to go in. He has the heal still coming off. He might get a kill.
Well, Lasbra is indeed able to get it, even while missing that ultimate. A well-timed blink there from Variety to allow him to escape. And now Awesome Jake steps on the gas. Herwin gets locked down. There is the Thunder Crash to get close. The Tycho Drums ends up missing those last 2, and Herwin gets the turnaround polymorph. But luckily, Benenu had such a tremendous advantage in that fight. He was still able to get the kill. They forced Genetics to use his ultimate as well, as he has disengage on the right. Renegades are once again applying pressure everywhere.
Well, you see Snoopy on the left if you're Renegades because he's pushing this tower, and that tier 1's gone. You can go ahead and ignore trying to rotate to that. But that one big opening kill here could open up the Fire Giant conversation for them. At 16 minutes in the game, that's a huge one to try and pick up, especially if you can get rid of someone like Genetics or Scream. Those are two huge targets. Scream because of the fact that he can melt through SOT, and Genetics because I think we've actually seen this year prior to him joining the SBL, him get a Fire Giant steal on this Terra. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for eUnited to be in there as well. And while she's not maybe the best secure on the team, and maybe not the best secure, period, it's still something that they have going for them.
Genetics always has that potential, so you got to keep your eye on him. But how well do you think that Renegades are going to be able to keep this going the later this game goes? Right now, it feels like, to me, Gore, they're finding these 2v1s or 2v2s or 3-on-2 fights where they're favored with all their extra control. Is that going to work as well in these late-game 5-on-5 fights?
I think with how behind Genetics is right now in terms of gold, just now being able to get a Void Stone, but not really the tankiest build there for this Terra. I don't know if they have the amount of pressure they really need to. Variety can go in, zone, and cause a lot of trouble for the Renegades, but even still, you're looking at just the solo laner maybe having that potency, trying to create space for Scream. I think if they keep playing it like this, Renegades could just walk away with this one. I mean, the Pyromancer goes, no problem. If eUnited don't change the way they zone objectives, then for sure Renegades have this one.
True.
But if they can pick apart some of these little strats that, unfortunately for them, are falling apart, I think eUnited, they're still in that realm of possibility because of their damage output.
It's crazy, man. It feels like eUnited have made a ton of the correct plays throughout this set overall, but Renegades keep pulling it back from them. Aside from this early game where Renegades have looked like a little bit better, I think, than eUnited. I think eUnited played really well here this set so far, so both of these teams it's something positive to try and take from this set no matter how it ends up. But right now, Renegades, with their ability to move around the map with Lasbra and all this Erlong Shen control, with all this damage from Veneno and from SOT, they're certainly in the driver's seat right now. We're still a full minute away from this next Fury respawning, and without a big advantage, these teams aren't ready for FG. They're going to force this fight onto Snoopy. They get the beads out from him underneath the tier 1 tower. He responds calmly, takes to the sky, but can't make it in time. Barracuda pops him before the ultimate can go off. Awesome Jake now with it to the skies will allow the team to reposition, but Veneno and Solar Troll have already picked off Scream, and now the whole posse is here for this next fight up against Variety near the Gold Fury. They zone Hurrowwind out so they can have a 3v1 in the backside of the fight, and they're still diving Hurrowwind underneath the tier 2. Argus will come down to try and provide some help for him. Somehow Hurrowwind is still alive. They get the turnaround kill into SOT. That's huge.
I mean, just huge juke shoes dancing around, but Lasbra looking for the kill still. Gonna get stunned out and locked down.
Yeah, they can't kill him somehow. That's good peel from Awesome Jake. That's going to buy them time. Even going to find a turnaround kill into Variety. That's a big play to turn this fight back around. But how could you not be thinking about Tyler, my man Hurrowwind, at this point, with the plays that he's making underneath that tier 2 tower?
Snap their ankles, right? Make him look at you the way that you can. He's dancing around Argus in a way that the only thing that could kill him there is if you have something that goes through walls. And unfortunately, the polymorph coming alongside that made sure SOT could not get the lockdown he wanted. Kills like that, the turnarounds like that specifically, are what keep eUnited so fresh in this conversation. Again, it's maybe not their tankiness, it's not the ability to zone so far. It is just outright their kill potential being so high, and with Hurrowwind making this Hera look good in a similar fashion that we've seen Dardes do it for Space Station Gaming, this is the opener. You let Scream stay ahead, you let Scream get into maybe a better position as this Bakasura, which is difficult to do right now, and maybe he jumps onto Barra, maybe he jumps onto Vin. Either way, he can help lock down somebody and be a late game carry.
Well, Variety has to walk to this fight. No teleport available for him to try and close the gap. But Fury is starting to fall low. It's good zoning coming out from SOT as well to bring Scream low, and Renegades secure the Primal Fury. Yet another objective controlled by Renegades here in this set. But where will they go next? They've got a decent lead at this point. 7,000 gold at 20 minutes is pretty potent here, Gormizer, and they're largely favored in all these skirmishes that they've taken. But eUnited keep sticking around within striking distance. It's keeping me from feeling fully confident in Renegades to win this one.
You know, Finch, I keep giving them trouble for it on eUnited, but realistically, it is difficult for them to zone with the composition they have, because I was looking at it, and I'm like, man, Solar Troll just walks forward, and he has enough of a zone, and, you know, he has good CC in his first 3 abilities, good damage on his first 3 abilities, but he's also got a huge circle team fight ultimate that if you walk past him, he is going to serve you up to his team like it's nothing. Then maybe you're trying to walk past Jake. Oh, wait, yeah, he has a knock-up and a stun that can lock you down. Try to walk to Veneno, who can taunt you or fear you. There's just so much CC on the side of Renegades that zoning kind of comes a little more naturally to them. Variety may be the only one tanky enough on eUnited to kind of open that avenue, especially with Genetics having that 2-level difference between him and his other support, let alone the rest of the game.
It's fair to say everyone on Renegades has game-changing control at their disposal, depending on the situation. Fire Giant is still being held by Awesome Jake, taking quite a bit of free damage, but he'll step out and heal up a bit. Renegades want to force eUnited into this fight core. They're looking more for the bait than anything.
You have to keep your eyes on Barra, because that exactly when I needed it on cue. The hearts that are technically out of combat healing, but can also be in combat healing, just enough to keep him or Jake or whoever topped off, along with Lasber having his own self-heal, allows him to get aggressive and keep taking fights like this.
That's a ton of burst damage onto Jake. He wasn't expecting it, and neither was I. What a turnaround from eUnited after the stun that landed onto Variety. Actually looked good for Renegades. So Renegades now, without Jake, have to fully disengage, but eUnited not going to let him do it for free. Scream diving onto Lasper, so Veneno provides some peel with the ultimate. That's a double kill from the Tycho Drums. What a turnaround play from Veneno, who's having a set to try and remember here right now. Barracuda gets the kill onto Snoopy, and SOT still has the control, so Lasper could find it. They may have lost Awesome Jake early on, but that's the turnaround that Renegades needed.
I mean, Veneno gets that perfect lineup, a 2-for-1 with his ult, and that's literally all she wrote. That's all you needed if you were Renegades to turn that fight from kind of teetering on the edge of success to just absolutely in your favor. Now, 4 members alive with Fire Giant. Yeah, Jake doesn't get it, but who cares? He's got heals, he's got Prot Shred, he's got everything he needs in his base kit. Now you've got a lot of pressure and a lot of tier 2s you can knock down. Oni Fury is going to be coming up. This is almost the perfect timer for Renegades to knock down this tower in right, knock down a tower in mid, go get the Fury, and still regroup with probably a minute and a half left on Fire Giant afterward.
Yeah, they'll still have a good amount of time to use this on, and they can back, as you said, and kind of spend some of that gold to buy up. But that last fight there, Gore, that's nasty, man, for eUnited. I mean, how often do you get to pick the enemy support essentially for free and then still get funneled into a death march up against Renegades and lose the full deicide on the backside? That is brutal for them. Still level 13 is Genetics at this point, too. I feel like things are only going to get harder now for eUnited after that backbreaking fight.
It's almost the same as last game in the terms of the way it changes the way the fights are going, but not the same in the way it happens, right? Renegades just get that one much cleaner. They earn this Fire Giant the old-fashioned way, and you lose a bunch of these towers. The gold lead swings so heavily now in favor of Renegades that expect to see these items or these relics getting topped off. Ward coverage is going to be great for them, so there's not much of a chance of you walking up to them in the jungle without them noticing it. The most you can do is, well, what Snoopy's doing right now. Take a tier 2 to try to retaliate at least a little bit.
Horus ultimate, they want to get there fast. So the eUnited are ready for great timing to get them to that backline quickly, but Veneno basically was the only one there alongside Awesome Jake, so he has to use the B to disengage. I liked the idea, maybe not as clean from Renegades as it could have been. They're still here for the siege, though. Barracuda's stunned on the backside of the Phoenix, but the damage is coming out consistently, and eUnited still haven't stepped forward on the gas. Argus is already out at this point, too. And Renegades get the left side Phoenix for free, but look at Snoopy over in right. Slowly, he's been trading out his own Phoenix, and Renegades can't find the back to stop this. Snoopy's just going to get it.
Yeah, you're going to need to find at least a second Phoenix to make this worthwhile for you. Losing that one in right, trading 1 for 1, it's going to be a big deal for eUnited. The avenue to the Titans open, but Genetics is gone.
Yeah, Genetics falls early on. Snoopy is going to rejoin the fight, but the Fields of Love locks Variety down and seals his fate. They'll grab the mid Phoenix as well. You said they needed 2 to make it worth it, but what about finding some kills on the backside as well? Renegades now with a stranglehold, not just on this game, but potentially on the set up against eUnited. Scream goes to the backline and brings Venenu low. That could have been the end, but Scream brings it back from the abyss. Lasber gets the kill onto Snoopy as well with 4 members strong. Renegades still have end potential as the Titan falls down to half HP. Argus, though, lands on the Barracuda and smacks him, but it's not enough. Renegades take the set 2-0 over eUnited.
I've gotten so used to seeing teams take those odds of a 2v4 with the Titan there and being able to be successful that I wasn't even watching the Titan health. I was looking for everything but where exactly is Barra's health going to be. And eUnited were in the same vein. They were still looking for the fight, still bouncing around on their feet, but unfortunately for them, the damage numbers were just good enough. They had a lot of healing coming down from Jake, and again, that Fire Giant fight was just so clean from Renegades. Like you said, how do you all in on Jake and still lose the fight? And I think Venenu just kind of takes the cake with the way that Raijin came in.
Yeah, everyone on Renegades played well. That looked like Venenu's best set of the year here so far. A great set from SOT as well. But everyone on Renegades firing on all cylinders. I'll get it back over to Dalton and Agro, have them break it down a bit more on the desk.
I got to agree with Finch there. I think you can make an argument this is Venenu's best performance of the year so far. In Agro, I think you could maybe even make an argument that this is the Renegades as a team best performance of the year so far. Back-to-back 25-ish minutes game 2 exactly 25 minutes, game 1 27. Game 1 a little bit more back and forth. Here in game 2 though, Agro, they got off to an early lead and never looked back.
Completely agree. I think that this was the cleanest set for the Renegades so far. Now, game 1, it requires a Fire Giant steal. Game 2, they get a Gold Fury steal, but I don't think that that changed the entire course of the game quite as much as that Fire Giant did, though it's hard to match that level of just turnaround potential. Really, I just thought that Ven looked so much better today. Solo Troll was a real standout. And just the team play from Renegades looked much, much cleaner this time around than it has in previous weeks. For eUnited, I think that clearly that objective secure has been a problem for them in this set. I mean, even though that Gold Fury I just said it wasn't as game-changing, it would have helped them. I mean, they were down 2K at that point. That would have really helped. But I thought on the opposite side, I thought this might have been Scream's weakest week so far, or weakest set so far this year, and in a year where he already hasn't really lived up to the expectations I think a lot of people really had for him. I mean, this team for eUnited, just great one week, not great the next.
I know.
It's got to be frustrating as a fan for that squad because you just never know exactly which eUnited you're going to get on a weekly basis. And the same could be said for Renegades, but at least those fans are feeling good this week because they're coming off a big win.
Yeah, and it's reasons like that. It's one of the hardest leagues to predict here at the moment. Post-game stats rolling across your screen there. Nothing really to be surprised at. I think the number that jumps out at me, though, is Variety. And, you know, he's only at the 4 to 6 death range. But you could really, I think, tell in this one Lasbra's mindset early and often. There were kills happening all over the map, but they were largely, mid lane rotations over to the long lane. But Lasbra just kind of sat in solo lane through the first however many minutes of this game, and it really put that King Arthur behind.
And it's just like we were talking about before the set even started, right? In the pregame desk, if Lasbra can get these leads, he snowballs them very, very effectively. It's when he doesn't get those leads that it becomes a little bit more problematic. No problems here for Renegades. They get the early lead in this game too, and they make sure that eUnited has no way back in.
Well, the 6th and 7th place team in the league now are now 1 win away from being tied for 3rd, 2 from being tied for 2nd. It's just neck and neck, and the only real pulls are on top and bottom. Obey, though, have shown some resurgence, but it's Rival that now has a distinct advantage up in that first place slot. That's what we had for you to start off the day here on Saturday. Obey, the team we just mentioned, will return to action up against Radiance here up next, and apparently what should be a pretty close set. But one guy, Agro, and I talked a good bit about here, especially after game number 2, was Lasbra. Really brought it on that Erlang Shen, really helped the Renegades push themselves over the finish line. And as such, we've got Lasbra standing by, so let's hear how he's feeling.
Thanks, Dolson and Agro on the desk. I am indeed here with Lasbra. And the first thing I got to ask you, man, I don't think there's a bigger moment throughout that whole set than that Fire Giant steal that SOT got in that first game. What were the comms like in that moment for the team where he's able to make that big play for you guys?
I think we just all shouting. I was like, hey, let's go. I think some of us were dead at the point, so we just like all saying, like watching him and doing it as well. I think I was the only one alive with Solo, if I'm sure. I'm not too sure, but we were just like,
yeah, I think
let's
you
go.
all ended up getting it, yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
It was
Yeah,
big.
I don't remember. Yeah.
Well,
that was, like,
normally
really
at the
huge.
end of your victories, Lasbra, I feel like we're always talking about you in particular because you always have to do so much work for these wins. But this felt like your first really big team win where everybody stepped up in this game. First, do you agree with that read? And second, what was different then to get you all that big team win?
I mean, I think I don't really know what like we did different, but like good practice and everybody's like just ready, woke up early, got some good breakfast and all that. Just like everybody just felt ready, and we had really good comms today as well. So that's really nice.
That's true. I feel like Veneno got to be on two really high priority picks here today on the Aphrodite and the Rygian, and he also maybe had his best game of the season so far. What does it mean for you all when Veneno's able to step up and have this kind of individual performance in the set? Because I think he went off in both games.
Yeah, he played really well in both games for sure. I mean, I think usually he plays like pretty well. I don't really think. I mean, he definitely played really good this game, but I think everybody played like exceptionally well this game or this set.
I agree. I think that was a full team effort here. Congratulations, Lasbra, on that win. I know it must mean a lot there for you guys. We still have another set, though, coming for you all, the viewers out there. So give us a few more minutes. We're going to get ready for that next game. We'll be right back.